Working with percentage and percentage problems now, it's best to think of a percentage as a kind of fraction. 3% means 3 out of every 100, or 3 over 100. That's a fraction. You know how to work with fractions. Okay. So let's work on expressing some fractions as percentages. Over here we have a fairly straightforward method. 9/10. Well, if we would turn that into a decimal, it's 0.9. And if we multiply that by 100, we get 90, and then we add the percent to show that we multiplied by 100. The other approach is to take the fraction and express it as a fraction over 100. So 9/10, we multiply the top and the bottom by the same number, 10. So it becomes 90 over 100, or 90%. Let's express 0.004 as a percent. Now the reason I picked this particular value is because there's a very common error. There's a dropping of a decimal place that sometimes occurs. So let's go ahead and run through this and show you where that happens so that you can avoid it yourself. Okay, 0.004% is equal to itself times 100 over 100. 100 over 100 is 1. It's, 100 divided by 100 is 1. So you can always multiply by 1. But by doing so, we take and we move the decimal place over here to the left while expressing this as a fraction over 100. Over here we're multiplying 100 times the 0.004 while leaving it as a fraction over 100. And so we end up with 0.4%. Okay, now the problem that people would sometimes do is that they would drop that 0.4%, and just simply call it 4%, and you'd be off by a factor of 10. I'm not sure why it happens. Example 3. 60 is what percentage of 20? All right, got to read these problems carefully. Which of these quantities represents a whole, a 100% all by itself? If you were to say, 60 is what percentage of 60? Well, 60 would be 100%, okay? But no, it's 60 is what percentage of 20. So if you were to say 20 is what percentage of 20? Oh, 20 is the unit. That's the whole. Okay, so that's your denominator in here. So we're going to start by expressing this as a fraction of 60 over 20. 60 over 20. And we're going to take our usual strategy and we're going to try to express it as a fraction over 100. Now 20 times 5 is 100, so we have to multiply the top and the bottom both by 5. So we're going to multiply this fraction times 5 over 5. Okay, 60 times 5 is 300. 20 times 5 is 100. Okay, and so 300, that 1 over 100 just becomes that percent sign there. It's 300%. What percentage of 50 is 40? Again, we start by expressing it as a fraction. What percentage of 50 is 40? So what percentage is 40 of 50? Okay, so 50 represents the whole in the denominator, and it's the denominator. So we have 40 over 50, and we'll express it as 40 over 50, dropping the dollar signs. Okay, those are units. Okay, but 40 times 2 and 50 times 2, that's going to express this as a fraction over 100. So this is 80 over 100, or 80%. What percentage of 300 students is 60 students? Okay, well, let's express this as an equation. We have 300 students times some percentage is equal to 60. We're going to solve for x here. Okay, x equals 60 over 300. Okay, that's 1/5. If we go ahead and we divide 60 into 300, that's 1/5. And then we would go ahead and we know that 5 times 20 is 100, so we're going to apply it by 20 over 20. So it's 1 times 20 divided by 5 times 20, or 20 over 100, or 20%. Now you could have gotten that same result if you had just factored a 3 out of this line right here. Okay, so 60 is 3 times 20, and 300 is 3 times 100, and so you could have been here a step earlier. You scored 86% on an exam, and you got 81.7 correct items on the exam. How many items were on the exam? Oh, well, 86% of some quantity is 81.7. Okay, there's like some kind of partial credit or something. Okay, so 86% of some quantity is 81.7. Well, we're going to convert the percentage to a decimal, and then we're going to solve for x. 86% is 0.86, and then I'm going to divide through by 0.86. Both sides. 0.86 divided by 0.86 is 1, and 8.17 divided by 0.86 is going to be 95. There are 95 problems on the exam. Okay, Kansas has 47 million acres of farmland, and it is 5% of the total farmland in the U.S. How much farmland does the U.S. have? Oh, this is actually kind of the same structure here. So some quantity times 5% is equal to 46 million acres. Okay, we're going to convert that 5% to a decimal. 5% becomes 0.05. So x times 0.05 is equal to 42 million. Divide both sides by 0.05, and we find that the U.S. has 847 million acres of farmland. Okay, example 8. A sales tax of $48 is charged on a purchase of $960. What is the sales tax? Okay, this time it's the percentage we don't know. 960 times some percentage is equal to 48. Well, let's go ahead and solve for t. T for the tax. So t is equal to $48 divided by $96. We'll go ahead and divide through by that. We see that's 0.05. That's a decimal. Let's express that as a fraction over 100. So this is 5 over 100, or 5%. A sales tax of 7% is levied on a purchase of $1,200. How much sales tax is owed? Okay, well, let's express it as an equation. 1,200 times 7% gives us whatever the sales tax was owed. Actually, there's nothing to solve for here. So it's 1,200 times the decimal version of 7%, which is 0.07, and the tax owed is $84. Okay, I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions on any of these problems or any of the problems you choose to work, please let me know and post them in the discussion board and we can work them together. Okay?